Hi, Brandon. How are you?
Not too bad. How you doing, Zoe?
I'm good. I'm just going to jump into some questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. When did you first know that you had a love for acting?
Ooh. I think I was 12. Yeah, I think I was 12. We did like a little middle school play when I think that's like grade 6 or grade 7. We did like a little middle school play where we did all the fairy godmother characters, and we made them into like we called it the Granny Awards. Where it was like all the fairy tale characters were coming in to collect like awards on their stories and stuff like that. And I played Little Pig number 2, and it was two of my friends that played Little Pig number 1, Little Pig number 3, and I think we were getting an award for engineering or something like that. And yeah, I remember we made a plan like, okay, when we go out to accept our award, we're gonna dance. Brandon, you do a moonwalk, and then Mike, you do this, and then Hamza, you do that. And then we're like, all right, cool, that's what we're gonna do. And then we did that to go accept our awards, and the entire audience like started laughing, and they were like, they loved it.
Oh,
And there was something about that feeling of having people respond to something that I did. I was like, ooh, at the time I had no idea what it was. I didn't even know you could do this as a job, but that really changed it for me. And then we did another play in grade 8, where we did a live action Grease. And then same thing, I was playing this like little side character. Every time I came out on stage, people were laughing, people were having a good time, and then being there and playing pretend with my friends, and like this was something that we do. And then we got encores. People brought their parents to watch the show. I was like, this is amazing. So I think that's where the seed. That's when the seed was planted. It didn't blossom until years later, but I think that's where it started for me.
awesome. What would you say was your first big break?
The Flash. I would say the Flash. Yeah. I've been very lucky to work on some pretty cool projects. Um, I worked on The Shape of Water with Guillermo del Toro, where I got to work with Octavia Spencer and Sally Hawkins and Michael Shannon. So that was, I wouldn't call that a break, but that was definitely a big learning lesson in terms of like what acting was and what it looks like at the highest level, which was extremely eye opening. And I thank God for that experience. And then I got to work on another show that came out on Quibi called The Most Dangerous Game, where I got to work with Liam Hemsworth and Christoph Waltz, which was really cool. Also, get to see the work at the highest level, kind of thing. But I think The Flash would be my biggest thing. It's the first time I've gotten to play a character for more than a couple days at a time and go to work week after week seeing the same people and get to spend this much time with a character. So I would say this is the biggest thing.
Nice. What can you tell us about the current season of The Flash without giving too much away?
It is going to be a very emotional season, a season full of. It's definitely going to be the biggest season. Eric Wallace is he's doing a lot. He's bringing some big concepts and some big ideas into the show, and yeah, just it's just going to be huge. It's going to be big things that you would never expect. Very expensive. Yeah, and it's going to be a ball. He's doing the same two graphic novel things, splitting the season up into two graphic novels. And it's just going to be really, really big. Nothing, don't believe anything you see. You won't know what's coming. And, people just gotta strap in for the ride.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
What is Chester P. Runk's greatest superpower? And I mean that as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. When spoke to Eric Wallace about Chester early on, one of the things that he told me, well, first of all, the way I like to describe Chester is that he's a big fan of the show who just so happens to be part of the show. You know what I mean? He's a big fan of superheroes who just so happens to be friends with superheroes. But one thing Eric Wallace told me that has always stuck with me, and I always think about it first and foremost when I think about Chester, is that he is the most he's the most empathetic person in any room that he walks in, and he doesn't know it. He's also the smartest person in every room that he walks in, and he doesn't know it. So I think it's the emotionality of who he is and the intelligence of who he is met with this immense level of humility and humbleness that he carries. and it's not even something that he puts on. He really isn't aware of just how smart he is and how much of an impact he can bring. So I'd say that's probably like that's foundationally who Chester is.
Nice. I like that. We know Chester is a huge fan of aliens. Do
Hmm.
you think any will show up this season?
I hope so. I really hope so because yeah, that's kind of where Chester started. You know, when the first time we see him, he's trying to contact aliens. And I definitely hope that that's something that we play into a lot more going forward, and discovering more about what that is and where that comes from, and how many times has he tried to contact aliens? What other inventions has he made doing that? So, and then possibly even meeting aliens and seeing aliens. I think that would be really incredible. So, yeah, hopefully, I hope so. I hope so.
What is your most memorable time on set?
Ooh, wow, there's so many now. Wow. I gotta sift through. You know what? I'm gonna say this stuff with Carlos for 706 for this episode that's coming up on Tuesday. Um, First of all, getting to work with Jeff Bird, who a black director, and getting to dive into all the things of who Chester is and finding out his backstory and stuff like that. So I think, and just working with Carlos is a ball. You know what I mean? Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to change my answer. I think it was shooting episode what would be 701 now, but was supposed to be the last episode of last season, or one of the last episodes of last season. Um, Seeing the dynamic between Carlos Valdez, Tom Cavanaugh, and Grant Gustin, and seeing how they are on set, and seeing they're three brothers, three homies, like, and they just click, and seeing how they work scenes out and how they go throughout a scene. I think that was probably the most impactful thing I've seen on set, and it's just a joy. And Tom is just he's a 12-year-old boy stuck in a grown man's body, like that kind of energy and that kind of love for life. And everybody just feeds off of that. And to see them ping pong off of each other is just it's an incredible sight. So I'll switch and say that. But everything that happened in 706 is very, very close second.
Okay, awesome. It's still very relevant.
Yeah.
What is your approach to auditioning?
Ooh. That's changed so much throughout the years. I consider myself still kind of young in this game because I wasn't union until like I think 4 or 5 years ago now. Um, so auditions for me didn't really start to pick up until like the last like 3 4 years, and my approach to it has completely changed throughout those years. And auditioning is a scary thing, and it's a difficult thing, especially when you're trying to get things going and you want to do things, because there's so many variables as to why people book and why people don't book, and it's very easy to take it personally, and it's very easy to feel like there's something wrong with you, and very easy to fall into like a hole. When you do like 50 auditions and or 100 auditions and nothing lands, it's very easy to be like, okay, well, clearly there's something going on. But I think the approach needs to be, at least for me, not so much about this idea of trying to impress casting, or trying to um, give casting what they want, kind of thing. I think it has to be a thing of, what do I see in this, and how would I have fun with this, and what is my take on this, and what do I think this is. Like, obviously do your research, learn what the show is, and learn the tone and blah 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 blah, but usually the tone is in the writing, you know what I mean? So just, what's my take on this thing? And Bryan Cranston said it the best. He said, my job is to audition. It's not my job to book. It's not my job to become a famous actor and become rich, and it's my job to book. So when I get an audition, it's my job to audition. So when I get an audition, um, uh, treat it like you would treat it if you were going to set. treat it like you treat it if you actually already got the job. Who is this character? What are they doing? What's happening here? Blah, 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 blah. All the things that you would do if you were actually going to work, you need to do when you audition. And that's how you treat it. So that as soon as you finish an audition, you move on to the next, or you move on to life, which is also another thing that I think is very important about auditioning. Having life outside of what acting is, you know what I mean? So that after an audition, you're not just sitting there waiting. You know, most of what has changed for me when it comes to auditioning is the mental aspect of it and the before and after of it, because those are the things that impact the next audition. You know, if you're sad and worried about the last one and you're hung up on the last one, you're bringing that same energy and intent into the next one, even if you don't realize it, and it reads. You know, so yeah, I know that was a long-winded answer, but yeah.
I really like that. It's like you can be told no 100 times, but as
Mhm.
long as you love what you're doing, that's all that
Exactly.
matters. And I feel like you really understand what that means.
Yeah,
Which is great.
if you're an actor, act. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
So yeah.
What is the best advice that you were ever given?
Uh,
And it totally doesn't have to be related to acting, but
yeah.
that would be great.
Man, there's so much. I'm the type of person that I try to take lessons out of everything. Like I'll walk down the street and, you know, a leaf will fall in front of me. I'm like, ah, that's a sign I'm supposed to like admire nature today. All right, let me look at these leaves real quick. You know what I mean? Like I take a sign out of everything. So I feel like just like the best advice I've ever been given is kind of just like life giving me advice in a way, not to sound like a guru or something like that, but just like walking down the street and looking at things. And, you know, I'm looking out my window right now and there's birds flying around and like, okay, you know what? After this, I gotta just like sit and look outside for a bit. Um, so I feel like life gives me the best advice, as whooshy gushy as that sounds. But as for like actual advice that somebody's given me, and this does have to pertain to acting, and to me, so much of what pertains to life pertains to acting, because so much of what acting is what you draw from your own life. You know what I mean? So if you don't have a full life, you don't really have anything to draw from. Speaking of advice, and speaking of that, a coach once told me, listen, if you don't do this in your real life, how do you expect to do it in your work? You know what I mean? So that's a great piece of advice that kind of leads into this next thing where I got advice from Octavia Spencer, who was very kind enough to sit down with me while we were shooting The Shape of Water. And for like a good 10, 15 minutes between setups, she was just telling me about, I asked her, I was like, what advice would you give to like a young actor? And the biggest thing she told me was like, be curious and have fun doing what you're doing. Like if you're not having fun doing it, if it's if it seems like a task, like there's always aspects of what you do that are gonna feel like work. But if the overall thing feels like a task or feels unfun or doesn't feel or doesn't bring you happiness, then you either gotta look for something else, or you gotta find what brought you into it in the first place. Find your why again. Find the thing that makes it fun, or make it fun for yourself. Um, so that, you know, when we come to set, like sure, there's all these things, and she was speaking from her. I'm speaking from her perspective now in terms of what she told me. She's a Academy Award winning actor, so everything that she does has weight. You know what I mean? It's not just, it's a career move with everything that she takes on. And she was like, it's very easy, and there's a lot of people in the industry who fall into that thing and become tainted by it, where it's like everything I do is like this big thing, so I got to make sure and da 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 da. Then you completely lose the fun of it all. Now everything is depressing and like there's anxiety around all the things that you do, right? So always remembering why it's fun and always trying to bring yourself back to that. Sometimes it's hard, but bringing yourself back to that, because then you just bring that energy onto set, and then everybody feeds off of that, you know. So um, yeah, that was a lot of advice, but those
Good
probably are the
advice.
biggest things. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Do you ever read a script and immediately know how the character is going to act, or does it all unfold as the scenes play out?
Never.
No.
If I think I've learned about myself that if I think I know, I'm reading it wrong. Because I feel like the best work is where people don't really know what they're doing. You kind of just go in with ideas, you do your preparation, you do your work, and then you go in and see what happens, kind of thing. And I feel like if you prepare too much or think you know who this person is or what the scene is or what's happening too much, I feel like you can also stunt a scene and like kind of not go, you won't discover things basically. So I never try to, if I have that impulse where I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is. Oh yeah, I know this. I can do this. I'm kind of like, there's probably another layer to it that I'm not reading here. You know what I mean? So I never know. I never know.
What would be a dream role for you?
I really want to do a biopic or biopic. I don't know how to pronounce that, but a bio. I really want to do something like that.
Biopic?
A biography picture.
Okay. Biography.
I want to play like a real person.
Someone else's story.
Yeah, yeah. I want to play like a very impactful black artist or just you know, I'm trying to think of somebody specifically, but like I was doing a little YouTube scroll and Get On Up, Chadwick Boseman's Get On Up came up, and like that's a dream.
Yeah.
I would love to do something like that. And another person from Toronto, Stefan James, he's got to play. He did a movie Race, where that's a biopic of the first black sprinter in the Olympics during Hitler's reign. You know what I mean? Like something like that, where it's just this deep, gritty, real life um, depiction of a person's life.
Thanks. What pushes and motivates you on a daily basis?
Again, I guess I'd just say life and how much of it there is around, and um, the opportunities that are there, and believing in what I'm capable of. Um, there's so many things. Yeah, and seeing other people do great things, and then seeing other people also like struggling and in worse positions than I'm in. So there's I think just walking down the street, there's a great deal of inspiration and a great deal of humility to be had in just observing things, um, and just having a full life. I constantly try to do things that I really enjoy doing and things that I really love doing, even if it's just sitting on my ass for, I don't know if I can say ass, sitting on my butt for three hours playing video games. You know what I mean? Like, sure, you could say that's a waste of time, but it brings me a great deal of joy and a great deal of therapy. So why not? Also, when I am working really hard on something, staying up till 4 in the morning, stressing myself out working, you know what I mean? That's a beautiful thing. Walking down the street, seeing a dude drive by in a Lamborghini, oh, that's amazing. And then seeing a dude kind of on the corner, not having a great time, that's all of it feeds everything. It's all motivation if you look at it like that. You know what I mean? I believe that all that stuff about life is all completely based on perspective. So
How do you use your voice for change?
um I feel like personally, I feel like I could use it more.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm trying to find ways to do that. Right now, whatever I do for change is usually in personal interactions when I'm speaking to people and when I'm talking about these things. And I try to. A friend of mine once told me the way he lives his life is he's like, okay, I want to leave myself a piece of myself in every room that I go in. If I go into a room, I want to leave that room better than when I came in. You know what I mean? And like that blew my mind when he said it. I was like, yo, like I never thought about things like that. Like, how do you even do that? And that's what I try to do every time I go anywhere. It doesn't matter. Like I'm in my home right now, but even walking into my home, like how do I make this place better, make it feel better? And um, so yeah, and then when I get into conversations with people, even when it comes to things about race and sexuality and just treating people like people. I always just break it down to that, like just treating people like people and having those interactions. It's like it doesn't. None of these things that we talk about and that are huge in media right now. And none of these things are politics. We're not talking about politics. My skin is not politics. My skin is not political. Your sexuality is not political. Your gender is not political. None of these things are political. This is just human stuff. These are people being people, going through people things. And now we're making them these big complicated discussions about all this other stuff, so it gets washed away and kind of muddled in politics, and it's not. And I feel like if you break things down to just compassion and understanding, and you break things down just to being human, a lot of change can happen. So whenever I talk to people about these things, I always try to do that. I always try to post things on my Instagram, not so much in terms of like, I think there's it's a good thing that we have social media in terms of spreading awareness, but I think it can be also very detrimental in people's minds. Seeing people die is not something that works great in the average brain. And watching videos about stuff like that, but giving people a place to like put that stuff, giving people words to help plant seeds of happiness and stuff like that in people's minds. And I feel like that's where my work stands. I'm not so much on the political front, but I am on the human front, where all this stuff is happening, sure, but what are you feeling, and what do you want to do, and how do we straighten that out? Because it's very easy to feel lost today. So I feel like that's how I want to create change, and I'm trying to learn how to do that better.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Last question.
Hmm.
Glitter Magazine has a celebrity self-love campaign,
Hmm.
and we want to know what self-love means to you.
Self-love means everything to me. I believe that everything, self-discipline, self-appreciation, getting up in the morning and, I'm going to go to the gym. That's self-love. You know what? I'm going to choose to wake up and be happy today. That's self-love. You know what? I'm not going to be as upset about myself for saying that lame joke that nobody laughed at. It's very easy to beat yourself up about tiny little things of that, but being aware of that, be like, you know what? It's okay. Like being able to tell yourself, you know what? It's okay. And I know I should be working right now, but I'm not in the mood to do so. I'm just going to sit here and look out the window or play video games or, bake a cake or something. That's self-love. You know what I mean? And I feel like that stuff is so much, I feel like it's the most important thing more than anything else, because I mean, the cliche story is people who, get to a certain level of success and they're rich and have all these things, blah, 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 blah. And somehow, somewhere are still unhappy. And that's more common than people actually realize. And these people, there's a lot of people who you'll look at and you'll see them and, you'll see their outfits, you see their homes, you see their cars, and it's like, oh my God, these people are miserable. So I think self-love is the most important thing, because if you don't tap into that balance of being able to like just be okay with yourself, to be alone for a day and you're cool, you know what I mean, and be able to kind of just chill out and you're cool. Without having that, I feel like I just feel like everything else falls to second to self-love. If you create out of self-love, you'll love everything about your life. you know if you don't, then you'll be in that up and down cycle that we all find ourselves trapped in on a regular basis. So practicing self-love, I think, is the utmost and most important thing that a person can do. It doesn't matter what you do in life. It doesn't matter if you're CEO of some tech or financial company or an artist. Like, self-love is wildly important for anybody that can call themselves human.
Awesome. Well, I loved all your answers. Thank you so much, Brandon, for chatting with us today. And
Thank you.
I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for doing this.